Good morning, everybody. Jim Feist and Hank Goldberg again. Happy Wednesday morning, Hank.
Yeah, boy, it's almost Thanksgiving.
That's right. It is. What's 10, like 8 days away, right? Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So you ready for another big day? I know you've been killing it this week. You had
Well, I can't beat what I did Monday, 4 for 4 in college baskets, plus I had the Giants. Eli showed that if he's given time, he can still beat somebody, you know, and that was the thing. They didn't put any pressure on him, and what I liked about him was that, you know, he spread the ball around in the fourth quarter, and that's what helped the Giants win the game. So, the San Francisco quarterback was okay for that 1 week, and predictably he wasn't the same against a decent defense next week. The Giants didn't look all that bad, and again this week they go against a team that has no pass rush. And Eli put together another good game against a team with no pass rush.
Well, if he can stand up, he can throw the ball. He's very capable. That's for sure. What do you make of this Philadelphia Eagle team this year? I mean, they got no corners now. They're totally, and now they're going to go play the Saints.
Well, it's a big number, and one thing about Philadelphia is they don't have a running game, which has hurt them. They were hopefully get Sproles back last week, and he wasn't ready, and he re-injured himself. And the quarterback can't carry that team by himself. They did add a receiver. He didn't help them a lot against Dallas last week, and now they play the hottest team in the league on their field. But again, it's a big number. And one thing about Philadelphia is that they don't lose by big numbers when they lose. So keep that in mind.
That's a good point. They moved the Monday night game from Mexico City back to L.A. because of the
that's a big story.
Field conditions.
And L.A.'s hurting. The top receiver's out. Their top cornerback is out. And the other cornerback can't play. So they've got some real issues. And Kansas City is going to, their passing game is going to have another big day. But the question is, how do they stop Gurley on defense? Well, they're getting a couple of guys back on the defensive side, which will help them somewhat. But the number now has the Rams favored by 3.5. And the Rams have not been a good investment in favorites. They're now one of the last 6. And I thought that Kansas City had their flat game last week against. They won, but they didn't kill it. But that was a game where they were in a great look-ahead spot, and they still won. What was that, against Arizona?
Yes.
So
yes, it was.
Yeah. So I think this will be a high-scoring game, and I think that Kansas City is going to run up points against the Rams. And the Rams' offense right now is pretty much dependent on what Gurley does. But Gurley's great. Yeah, he's a machine. This will be a real good game, and I think the game is even.
Well, I do too. I'm kind of glad the game's back in L.A. because you get a true home field. The one thing, let's mention something about what's going on in California, the terrible fires. It's, our prayers go out to those people. It's absolutely awful. But as a football note, quite a few of the L.A. team executives and staff have been affected by this fire. Some of them have lost homes. Lots of them have had to escape and go into other quarters. It's a pretty big mess there. It's a terrible thing, but on a football basis, it definitely could affect this game.
Well, I made that point last week, if you recall, before the game in Seattle, that it probably would affect the Rams because they canceled their Friday practice. They had to move out of their houses, were staying in hotels. And this week, once again, they moved to Denver for two reasons. One, to escape the fires, but they were getting away from their families. And the second thing was they wanted to practice in high altitudes. And they decided to stay in Denver until just before the game and then move back to L.A. Well, they got to be very disrupted right now.
Yeah, their training facility was in Colorado Springs because they were training at high level, because they were going to Mexico City, which is, high elevation, and they're trying to acclimate to that. But that's where they were training for this week. So,
well, they decided to stay though, even after the game was moved back to Los Angeles.
probably smart.
Because I don't know. It's another disruption. They got their families back in the fire area. They got to be worried about that. And maybe they'd be better off at home. Who knows?
Yeah, that's hard to call. I don't know about that. I don't know which way to go on that one. But let's hope they're all well, and everybody, the fire, somebody how they put out this fire with 4 fires, not for one fire. It's like 4 or 5 fires. Pretty bad. But moving on to more football, we got a college week. That we're heading down to the end of the college season. I'm talking about football. Of course, college basketball is just getting started. And we do have one big game tonight. Michigan against Villanova is kind of a marquee matchup there.
Villanova's loaded again, and the game's at Villanova. As far as college football goes, West Virginia, Oklahoma State is a big game, and Oklahoma State has really been coming on. I like the way they're playing right now. They've got a lot of offense. I'm not sure West Virginia at Oklahoma State, that West Virginia can keep up with them. And Oklahoma State played a big game last week against Oklahoma, and their job isn't finished yet. Oklahoma State is a team that's kind of lurking around. That is going to have something to say about where teams are placed at the end of the season, and their offense is very well coached right now.
If this was the end of the season, if you were going to make a prediction, say now for the end of the season, who would be in the playoffs? What would be your 4 teams?
Well, the 3 teams are automatic. It's Alabama, Clemson, and the third team is Georgia. So those are the 3 top teams right now. The 4th team, I'm sorry, Notre Dame, not Georgia. Georgia's going to play Alabama probably for their conference championship. So even Alabama loses that game in a close one, they still might go. So, but the top 3 are, Notre Dame's in there. So those, the 4th one would come from teams like Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a strong contender. If Georgia manages to upset Alabama, which is a possibility, it would be hard to keep them out. But you're not going to keep Alabama out, even if they lost a close game. It'd be interesting what would happen if that. That
would really throw a monkey wrench into it. Georgia beats Alabama, then you're very likely to have both of them into the playoffs, and Notre Dame and Michigan and those teams would be out of the mix.
Well, Michigan's in the mix, and or Michigan could be the odd team out. I'm sorry, but Notre Dame is in as long as they keep winning, and you've got Clemson. They're getting better every week, So you got those two teams, and it goes from there. I think Ohio State's out of it.
I agree. I agree with that. Well, it's going to be a pretty interesting final couple of weeks. In NBA, Jimmy Butler moved on from Minnesota to the 76ers. That should be interesting to watch. If he fits in well, they're going to be pretty tough. The Lakers are rounding into shape. They have a big game tonight with Portland. And Portland has those two great guards that can put up a lot of points. In the previous meeting, they each scored 30, which is pretty, but they lost the game. So there's a lot going on. And I guess there's a little bit of controversy and problems with the Warriors with Draymond and Durant. And
Yeah. So early. I don't think anything's going to happen to them. I'm looking at Seattle Green Bay tomorrow night, and I see people are talking about what Green Bay. They had a lot of yards rushing against Miami. That was Miami. Now they're playing at Seattle. That's a different story. You can't judge teams by what they do against Miami, as I told you all year long. Miami stinks. So.
They sure do.
And Green Bay, ran all over them. But Seattle, I will point out one thing about them. They're 5-0 on Thursday night, and they're home.
What do you, in that game, since you brought it up, what do you know about the running back for them, Carson?
I don't know about Carson, but I don't think they miss him very much because they've got the rookie who can play. Penny, he's real good. So they're loaded with running backs right now.
And they need it. They've been their
Well,
offense.
they had it last week. Davis and Penny ran well, and they could have won that game if it wasn't for a turnover by Wilson towards the end of the game. They got to keep him from turning the ball over. But now they're playing against a team that is kind of weak defensively, and I think they've got a big edge. And Wilson's completing long passes now, and the running game really helped them last week. So they'll run. They can run the ball against Green Bay. I don't think they'll have a problem.
Should be that will be a good game to watch. You get two quality quarterbacks and
I'll tell you the game I want to watch this week is Chicago and Minnesota. Minnesota got their running back healthy again, and they're healthy on defense. And I think they're going to be a tough team to deal with the rest of the way. And now they play against Chicago at Chicago, and the Bears are getting respect now. But I don't know if the quarterback can do well against that defense or not. They got a couple of good running backs, but I'll tell you that Minnesota defense, when it's healthy, they're tough to move the ball against. And then you get the Chicago defense. So that game is going to be very interesting. But Minnesota finally got that running back healthy, and he had a big game last week. And he's a difference maker for them.
yeah, you got Cousins against Trubisky. What do you think of those two guys?
Well, I think Trubisky still has to prove himself against a good team. And Cousins is, if he's got the running game going for him, he's got two great receivers, plus the tight end. They're loaded with receivers. So as long as they can protect Cousins, and, protecting him is going to be a lot easier if he's got, if he's got a running back who can play the way this guy can. And last week he ran for over 100 yards.
Game I want
Came back.
I want to touch on another game here. This is an interesting situation. A couple weeks ago, we would have both thrown Tennessee under the bus. And then all of a sudden, they really started playing well, and Vrabel's doing a great job. but they're going to Indianapolis, who's playing very well, and Andrew Luck is playing like Andrew Luck a few years ago. That's a division game. It's a very important game.
Yep.
Tennessee is 5-4. Indianapolis is 4-5. So I mean, the pressure to stay in the mix is on both of them, but a little bit more on Indianapolis because the home game and they're one game behind this club, and of course they're all dealing with Houston, who's 6-3. So if they're any chance to get into the playoffs, I mean, this is a very, very important game to both these teams.
Well, it's a tough game to call because Indianapolis, I don't think, is beating a team with a winning record. And Tennessee is coming off back-to-back games against, Dallas and the Patriots. And now they're going up against, the division rival. It's been a tough schedule, a trio for Tennessee. And one thing about the Colts is that their general manager has put together a very good young team. They've got two guards who can really play. They're playing at the Pro Bowl level right now, and that's one of the reasons why Luck is having so much success. They've done it. I don't think he's been sacked in 6 games or something like that. So he's been playing without any pressure on him, and he can throw the ball. There's no two ways about it. And he has the good sense to run out of bounds when he's in trouble, so he's avoiding injury. And they have, like I said, very good offensive line play, and they've got a couple of good defensive players too. So they've been able to get pressure on opposing teams. And last week, their defense caved a little bit against Jacksonville. So this is going to be an interesting game to watch, and I think a tough game to bet.
It is a tough game because Mariota has played well the last couple of weeks, which he had not been doing because he's feeling healthy now and they're getting a little protection. But like I said, Vrabel's doing a great job. But the head coach for the Colts are doing a great job as well. So, and this is a very interesting situation. You have Houston in that division. Houston is at 6-3 for the year. They're going up to Washington. Houston's coming off a bye, and Washington is coming off kind of an unbelievable victory over Tampa Bay, where they gave up 500 yards and 3 points to Tampa Bay. But they only scored 16 points, and they have 3 offensive linemen that were missing in that game. This is
and they lost. I think they're going to lose another one too. Oh. But they don't have their best running back, who's a receiver out of the backfield, Thompson. They don't have him. I just think they have too many guys missing, and Houston's defense is probably going to shut them down.
Yeah,
basically, Tampa shut them down defensively, and they won that game because of turnovers.
Then Tampa goes up to play the Giants, which is very interesting after what Giants did on Monday. That's a very interesting game.
Short week.
Short week, cross-country trip, tough spot. But Giants are favored. Total is 52. You would think, looking at it, the way that Tampa has played this year, you would think there's going to be a lot of points in the game. Now, last week they didn't get a lot of points because they kept turning the ball over, but they certainly have enough yardage. That's interesting.
Well, the one thing about the Giants is their defense isn't bad. Of course, everything with Tampa depends on that quarterback, and what he does, and he's up and down.
Sure is.
I wouldn't count on a high-scoring game.
The Chargers are 7-2. They host Denver, which is a division rival, who are 3-6. Excuse me. And Chargers have just been really, really good, and they're getting better. Any word on when or if Bosa is going to come back?
I haven't heard anything, but they've been doing fine without him. The question with Chargers, they didn't play that great last week against the Raiders, but they didn't have to. But it was not a tremendous game for Rivers. he did what he had to do. And of course, you know, the Raiders had no offense; they couldn't score. But Denver is so bad on the road, and that coach, he's still there. And you know, the quarterback there, he's not playing like he did last year in Minnesota. I just think that the Chargers at home against a team that can't travel, that's like got such a miserable road record, like 2-15 or something like that.
Bad.
You can't play Denver.
No, I'm not putting any money on Denver. Hank, I know we're running long, and I know you have to go. Hank's picks and mine are jimfeist.com. Just go to the website, look at what Hank has to offer and what I have to offer. I'm sure you'll do very well. We've been doing very well. Thank you, Hank. I appreciate your time today. If there's anything else, let me know before we close.
Duke is playing today, too. Best team on earth.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anybody's going to stay with them at this point anyway. Okay, Hank, thank you.
I'll tell you one quick story about Duke.
Okay.
You know, when Coach K is in town, he rarely says anything, and there's a restaurant that he eats at regularly that I go to occasionally. I'm going there tonight. And I asked him if Coach K was in there before the season, and he said, "Oh, yeah." And I said, "What did he have to say about his team?" He said, "He never says anything, but this year I asked him about his team, and he says, 'We'll be all right.'" So that's a huge statement coming out of Coach K.
That's hilarious. All right, thank you, Hank. Appreciate it.
Okay.